Come on up.
How was the engineering?
That was good. I wish you were there. What's your name?
Yeah.
There was only 4 Jennings.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Right.
So it was very impressive. Now, I hope you can do
What
that.
kind of did they do like?
So what they did is they had to pick something
On the,
to have give
yeah, they're all
wine
for it.
things they will.
Yeah.
There was a whole process.
Yeah.
And like they had groups, which I would rather have them do
Oh, I
smaller.
know. Well,
Or, you know,
I
but, you know,
wanted,
they'd have like.
I asked
they
them,
made a
can you
wall,
do it just like on
a wall, they
weekend,
had
no
like a
event
pocket
parking?
knife.
Well, the thing is, it's either safe or it isn't.
How much they think it
And
costs.
that's where they have
The
to
test,
go.
it was, yeah.
And
I hope you can.
Even
it's
at
safe.
the college level,
Sometimes they're not,
you know, you always
has
find
to get vehicles.
groups of
Emergency
two
vehicles.
are really work.
Yeah.
Just kind of, you know, but you're right. I've mentored groups that are like, what are the requirements?
Yes, sir. About 6 times a year.
Oh, look at that.
Say, well, it's not fair, I can't park here, you know. But if you tell me.
So Steve. Oh, he was talking about that last night.
I don't want you to.
I got one. So he busted his parts inside there.
They don't, they're not gonna come and, you know, give you what
Dad did well today with his music cell and his arm removed. And
I have no idea. I don't know if it's loud or if it's loud to me.
Okay, good.
One is me.
big event, they want you to have the ability to do
They were all to me, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
You want to
Kids that are smart.
do that for me?
You could just tell.
Okay. Oh, we got this meeting. I didn't realize.
We do. Yeah.
Oh, you here for the parking?
Or nobody, you know, festival hills, you know, people use that word. And they'll go for tuition and they go. But it's training people.
She's supposed to be here. I assume we are. She's got his mail there. Yeah. So,
Unless something came up, I don't know.
Oh,
you've got 1 minute.
Yeah, oh, I know.
Actually, you should go ahead. It's the longest minute.
Well, the only thing I asked is one person saying, I don't want no training, but.
Claire's got a call roll anyway.
Have you heard that?
that's why we're having
Yep.
this public hearing. I thought you were.
Terry's going to do that.
There's parking in the convention center, and we're trying to just We're finally getting somewhere, aren't we? Finally getting somewhere with your parking, aren't we? Okay, that's good.
Good evening, everybody. We have a closed session scheduled for this evening, so with that, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session per state statute RSMO 610.02119.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Swanson,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel, Councilman Hammond,
Yes.
Councilman Elam,
Yes.
Councilman Hollander,
Yes.
Councilwoman York,
Yes.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
We are in closed session.
We'll be back in 15 minutes.
Way to set the bar.
She went to the bathroom.
Oh, we have a moment of silence. We don't have a prayer.
Read that right now. Go. Yeah.
It's on.
What I mean is the people that grab the stem and inadvertently turn off the mic because there's a button. So the designer.
Yeah, down here. But the green is on already.
Yeah, there's a button.
Stand here.
Oh, there you go. It's all good. So with that, I would entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
Motion to come out of closed session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are out of closed session, and that'll move us right into our regular meeting. So welcome, everybody. It is the Tuesday, May 27th meeting. Obviously, we moved to Tuesday since yesterday was Memorial Day. Hope everybody had a good Memorial Day. We will start with a moment of silence for our invocation, going along with Memorial Day yesterday, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Matt Swanson. If everyone would please stand and remove your cap. Thank you. Mr. Swanson? Thank you. You may be seated. Please call the roll.
Councilman Swanson.
Here, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel.
Here.
Councilman Hammond.
Here.
Councilman Elam.
Here.
Councilman Hollander.
Here.
Councilwoman York. Here. Councilman Baker.
Here.
That brings us to our first bill of the evening, which is Bill 5383, Conditional Use Permit.
Bill number 5383, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 25-02 for a lawn care service to JR Properties Group LLC property owner.
Any questions or comments?
I just make a quick comment. I do support this. I did have a few people call me with concerns, but if the conditions, all the equipment has to be inside. These buildings have been commercially used for 20, 25 years next to the old highway department building, another building, landscape building. So these three buildings in a row have always been commercially used. So there's no other use for this ground, and so they do got some conditions on it that I think are respectful to the neighborhood, so I do support it.
With that, please call the roll.
Bill number 5383, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 25-02 for a lawn care service to JR Properties Group LLC property owner. Councilman Swanson.
No, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel.
Yes.
Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilman Elam.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
Councilwoman York.
Yes.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
Bill number 5383 passes. That brings us to public hearing on traffic regulations for a no parking zone near the convention center. Is there anyone to speak on this? Okay.
We'll start with Gina Orr. Good evening. If I may, I'd like to show a picture. You can put it here.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Just lay it down.
There you go.
It'll come up. It's up.
Okay. Okay. Obviously, I come to you for the parking issue again for the convention center. I am concerned about this traffic ordinance. If it passes, that it will potentially have a negative impact on the neighborhood where I live. On May 12, 2024, I submitted a petition to Mr. John Lyons that was signed by over 50 residents in our neighborhood adjacent to the St. Charles Convention Center. This petition was developed after conversations with residents who were desperate for a solution to the traffic hazards and disruptions caused by the convention center attendees. The petition requested no convention center parking violators would be towed. Nearly 1 year later, April 4th, 2025, Mr. Lyons forwarded this petition to Mr. Brian Ludwig and Mr. Brian Wise. I feel like that was kind of a long time in coming, but maybe. Stating the petition, as requested, was not practical. I received this follow-up on May 15th, 2025. I've continued to have conversations with many fellow residents, and the consensus is that there is a better solution to the problem rather than simply putting no parking signs in various specific places. The picture here, the pink, shows where the no parking signs are. This heavy one it's both sides of the street. Both sides of the street here. This is one side of the street. So that gives you an idea of this ordinance and where those signs are. The yellow over here is actually the streets that are impacted. There's many neighbors that are here to speak tonight. when Mr. Schulte that spoke at the April council meeting about the little motor vehicle issue that he had, he lives down here, right? Nowhere where those no parking signs are. So I feel like this ordinance, while it might be a little start to maybe fixing the problem, ultimately, if we could have no event parking, residential parking only, something specific to broaden into the neighborhood so that residents like Mr. Schulte will be positively affected by something that the council sees to pass. So if this ordinance is the only thing that will be done, I would request that you don't pass it, because I am willing to do what I can do. If I need to do another petition, I will do another petition. If I need to reword it, I will do it. But please, if this is the only thing, I feel like it's not enough. Thank you.
Raymond Schulte.
He's coming.
Get this useless piece of equipment off my head. These implants don't do a whole lot. My name is Raymond Schulte. I live at 1726 Beverly Drive, and I pray and hope that the county council will pass an ordinance that puts a limit on the parking on our streets around the convention center, because it becomes such a problem for all of us folks that live there for many years. And I know the city doesn't want to do anything to prohibit the exceedingly large gatherings that they have there that creates the problem parking. And so I just hope that the county council will see to it that we can get something to eliminate that problem that we are all having countless times over the years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Carr.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't have her map, but based on her map, the yellow highlighting, my house actually falls on 2 of those roads. I wanted to give the suggestion as someone who has gone to events at the convention center before I lived in St. Charles, as well as someone who now lives there. I fully support the convention center having events. I think if they only have parking for 700, it doesn't make sense to have events that have 12,000 plus in the future. I believe, not from a resident perspective, but as someone who went to these events, it doesn't give a good view of St. Charles. As someone who did have to park in these neighborhoods when I went to the events previously and having to park in someone else's area, it gives that the convention center is not equipped to handle large events, which obviously we do want large events in St. Charles because we do want people coming in and understanding how great it is in St. Charles. One of her ideas that she proposed originally, which was no parking tollway zone, I think it starts to get at that problem for the instance of, if you have someone parking in front of your mailbox and there's a no parking tollway zone, it gives the resident the ability to say, that car, I'd rather them not park there because they're not being respectful to the property. However, for instance, my house that is on both sides, if I have people parking where I have a hill, I don't mind it. But my neighbors, who very understandably have people parking in front of their mailboxes, which isn't respectful, then have the ability to say, this is not respectful, you are not being respectful to my property, I would like you to move. And I think only that level of control for residents allows more pressure on the convention center that if you're not giving a good experience to your convention goers by what's going on right now, but to push more to make a change. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry Desilek.
Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. I am going to piggyback a little bit off of Miss Rebecca because a lot of these event goers that are coming in, they are not at all respectful to our properties. If we put these no parking anytime zones in the back of the subdivision to try to help with that area, all you're doing is pushing all of the possible parking, every little car that's squeeze in up onto Clearview and Moonridge and any other place that they can find. One of the recent events, a car was trying to park and block the stop sign and hit the bumper of another car that was parked there. Got out of her car and walked up to the man in his yard that was trimming a tree and said, "Oh, you're not going to tell on me, are you?" And he said, "Well, if the cops come and ask, I have cameras, I'll give them the footage." She shrugged her shoulders and walked away. I personally have had a group of people from one of the conventions trying to get into their cars drunk after the event. I have a little metal spire box in my yard that I authorized so my neighbor could get gas. One of the people said, one of them tripped over the box. Another person said, "Oh, you should have fallen and broken your arm. You could have sued that homeowner." At that point, I said, "Folks, you got to go. You're trespassing. You're not in control of yourselves. You got to go." They called the police on me. The police came out, dealt with the driver to make sure the driver was safe to drive, let them go, pulled me to the side and said, "Ma'am, you can't tell anyone that they can't park in front of your house." I said, "I don't want trespassers on my property. I don't want potential lawsuits." He said, "They can't sue you. It's an easement." I said, "Would you like to bet?" Because I can give a $90,000 example where my parents got sued for someone that fell in their yard and broke a pinky finger in their hand. And she was on a public sidewalk in front of my parents' house. I contacted my insurance. They will settle. They won't even fight it. They will settle. So all of this stuff coming up to from the convention center, city's not wanting to do their part. Sports Authority doesn't want to do their part. You guys say you can't do it all. Somewhere there's got to be a meeting of the minds, and this needs to be fixed because the homeowners don't deserve this. We deserve our privacy. We deserve our weekends, just like everybody else. We work hard through the week. Why should we want to have all of this pushed off on us because the convention center doesn't want to do what they promised initially? So none of the other residents, or most of them, they don't want no parking signs everywhere. We just want some limitations and some rules so that they can't just come take over the front of our properties and do what they want. So, thank you.
John Elaparity.
Who is that?
John Elaparity.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
I was reading my speech, and it's pretty negative. I think I was a little upset that I had to be here instead of watching my grandson play baseball tonight, when to me it's a no-brainer. This is a picture that I showed the last time. Let's do this.
Flip it the other way, John. There you go.
So that the street by my house, I live 5 houses down from the main entrance of the convention center on South Drive. You know, you guys put up these no parking signs, which is screwed up. Everybody's visiting, people they have coming. You know, it doesn't work, and it says that in this letter. This thing here, the street is 24 feet across. The average car is 8 feet across. So that's 24 feet. So if you remove parking on one side, you would have to have a one-way street for it to be effective. Because I've been there. These people come up and down, up and down. You know, I called the city one time, or the county, why don't I have gutters? I'm one house away from having gutters on my street. And they told me the sewers can't handle it. And I was thinking, you know, the same amount of water goes down the street, you know, and I've heard people, I've lived there 30 years, and I've heard people say
if you live in St. Charles, unincorporated county, you're treated like second-class citizens. You know, and now we're having to deal with people, you know, coming back to their cars at 10, 11 o'clock at night, driving everybody's dogs crazy. You can't get in and out of your driveway. If this was St. Peter's, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. If we were in other communities where residents have a higher status, you know, why don't we let the convention center be responsible for their customers? You know, they have shuttles from the family arena and they have shuttles from the riverfront. There has to be an alternate area. I don't know how many of you live in this area, but if this was in your neighborhood, you'd be standing here. That's all I got. Thank you.
Patricia Pfister.
Good evening. I live at 1606 Barbara. That's the first block off of South Drive. The two main ways to get to my house are off the service road and off of South. South is so narrow, they disregard the no parking. If you had to have an ambulance or a fire truck, they could not get through that street. I know that's a fact because my husband's truck can barely get through that street. And the people expect you to back out of their way. Also, they do park on my street, but my street is a little bit wider than that. This last anime show, I had people undressing in front of my house and putting their costumes on. I think that is disgusting. I mean, a man went down to his underwear and put on a full fox costume. Luckily, I don't have my grandchildren most of the time, but if I had kids, I don't want them seeing that. I mean, we can accept someone parking in front of our house because the street is wider, but we don't like it. We can't have other people come visit us. And the people that have teenagers with cars, they have nowhere to park then if they come home from their jobs or school. So, I have health issues. If I need an ambulance, by God, I want it to get to my house, no matter who's at the convention center. That's my biggest thing. Thank you.
Stephanie Stein.
Good evening. I wrote something and I'm kind of going off script, but I live at 1213 Clearview Drive, which is a block over from the entrance of the convention center. We currently have enough room for parking on both sides of the street, but when the anime convention comes, it's insane. What I don't want is no parking at any time put on my street, because that affects me daily when my family, I have children and grandchildren that come on weekends and during the day, you know, during the week to come visit, they would have no place to park. So I don't think that that is the answer. Thank you. If we had no event parking signs, that would be acceptable if it was enforced, I believe, but I, as a taxpayer and a resident, the no parking at any times would be detrimental to my enjoyment of life having my guest over. And it would be a punishment to me rather than people that are violating our rights. The safety concern also isn't the overcrowding and the ambulances trying to get into the smaller streets. That does need to be addressed for them. And the convention center, there's a vacant lot across from our house. I don't want a parking garage in front of my house. That would devalue my house and just plummet my property value. So I don't think that is an answer either. I think they need to limit the size of their attendance. A fire code, you think, would limit that. I can't imagine 8,000 people being able to fit in that building safely. If there was a fire, it would be detrimental. So I am against the no parking anytime signs, but no event parking would be acceptable. Thank you.
Caleb Reed.
Good evening, lady and gentlemen of the council. Thank you for allowing us to come and speak before you on this matter. My wife and I live at the corner of Clearview and Moonridge. We have 3 children, one of whom is a driver, so we have that extra car. So the first thing I want to say is that I do not desire to have straight no parking signs on my street. It would limit my ability to have the 3 cars that my family owns in a reasonable space around my home. My wife and I wish to preserve both the value of our homes and the privacy of our neighborhood. The proposed no parking signs don't fix the overcrowding and this parking on neighborhood streets issue. It just moves it from South Drive and Beverly Drive to streets like Clearview and Moonridge, which is right where I live and several of the people that have spoken already. All right, it would also affect the ability of residents on South Street to utilize street parking when they have visitors or when they have extra cars in front of their own homes. I would urge the council to consider more nuanced solutions, and I would ask that the convention center, the hotel, and the sports authority to utilize their resources and their real estate that they own to better prepare for the attendees to their events. The idea of using shuttles from places like the Family Arena is very doable. There are events in the area, such as Festival of the Little Hills or the Oktoberfest down in Frontier Park, that utilize much the same thing to avoid overcrowded street parking in the Frontier Park area. That is all I have to say. Thank you again for providing this time for us to come speak to you, and I would ask that you do not pass the proposal as it is currently written. Thank you.
Arnie Dienoff. Arnie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate, and I'd like to start out by saying these residents have come before you, before the City of St. Charles City Council, which they didn't get a lackluster response. And I believe that the county engineer, the county highway department director, deserves to take a second look at this issue and make these residents whole. None of you live there. None of you have experienced this. And the testimony that I've heard is resounding and very convincing. And so I asked this county council to redirect back to the county engineer, the director of highway department, to come up with a better plan that's formatted to protect these residents and to make them whole, to make the health, safety, and public welfare of unincorporated St. Charles County across from the convention center more livable and a better place to live. Now, the attached petition, according to the Director of Highways, meets a minimum petition requirements for consideration. No parking zones, it's a no-brainer in this case. Its parking should only be for residents and visitors of their families and friends. This is to ensure that all residents remain accessible in terms of emergency vehicles and first responders when the call of aid is needed. Now, I believe that needed cooperation and enhancement needs to come between various jurisdictions. We need to put down the power plays, put down the political politic game, and these residents need to come first. The City of St. Charles Police Department needs to meet with our St. Charles County Police Department, in addition to the St. Charles Convention Center Division of Public Safety, so that everybody is on the same playing field on an even keel basis, and there's a plan, a roadmap to go forward with the next big convention. According to the mayor of the City of St. Charles, after the city council meeting, he addressed several residents, and the mayor said that the city will bring in larger and larger events with more and more attendees. We need to protect these residents and emergency response personnel. We need to make sure that access is the first and top priority. There are 2 garages being discussed in closed session by both the St. Charles City Council and the St. Charles County Sports and Facilities Authority, which, in a change of state law in 2024 by the General Assembly, allows the 5 commissioners to be appointed by the county executive with the confirmation of you, the county council. So we need to ensure that all 5 of these commissioners are responsible and accountable to each and every resident, whether they're in the city or whether in unincorporated county. And so I asked Mr. Ellman, you're smiling over there, you asked for the change of law. I'm asking you to make each commissioner responsible. They also own the property at the carpet store, and they need to be part of this equation. To the residents, I ask that you hold the St. Charles City Council, the St. Charles County Council, and the St. Charles Sports and Facilities Authority accountable and responsible by attending meetings. The city has executive staff and the authority has an executive director. I would ask you to start an email campaign, start taking pictures, start making complaints, start calling the police department, non-emergency number, and make complaints. The residents of unincorporated St. Charles County have demonstrated to you, our county council, our elected officials, the need. There's no question that there's a need, and you shouldn't thumb your nose at the need. And the county engineer shouldn't thumb his nose at the need also. Where are the police patrols, I asked our police chief, Kurt Frizz. Where are the police patrols upholding the values and morals of our county? Where are they upholding the county code and state statutes? And why are they not issuing citations when there's nudity, urinating, destruction of property, parking in residential zones, and making these people's lives miserable? I beg of you and ask each one of you to do the right thing, send it back to the county engineer, and let's come up with a better plan. There's no reason to keep these residents waiting and waiting week after week. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the no parking zones?
Seeing none, that will close the public hearing on that one. That moves on to public hearing of citizens' input for housing needs for the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan.
Mr.
Arnie,
Chairman, before
Oh,
we
please.
move on, can we talk about this? I think I got an easy solution.
We'll pull it
Can
off
I-
the consent agenda, Dave.
I'm going to pull it off. the
Yeah.
consent
Okay.
agenda.
So when we get to the consent agenda, I figured you could pull it then and we can have a discussion. Fair enough?
Okay.
Okay. Arnie Dienoff?
Yes. This is consolidated plan. I'm assuming you're coming back to talk on the CV program as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Look at me. I can see the future.
There you go. Thank you very much, members of the council. Again, my name is Arnie C., A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. So you've heard me year after year, and I keep talking, but we don't see any change. And I haven't seen county administration or the staff revisit and negotiate with the city of O'Fallon. We have a consolidated plan of our community development block grant funds with all of our municipalities, villages, and towns across our county. We are 433 county residents strong, but for some reason the city of O'Fallon doesn't want to join the true consolidated plan. I don't know if it's because of power or it's because of control or if it's because of political patronage jobs at the city of O'Fallon. But Ms. Lycom, a number of years ago, when another former assistant director of administration, Jennifer George, was in charge of that program, she tried to get the city of O'Fallon, she got all the municipalities except for the city of O'Fallon to join the county plan. Why are we not making sure that that's happening? Because the city of O'Fallon pays for these political patronage positions over $150,000 in administration costs, which are allowed 15% for administration, and the city of O'Fallon gets approximately $1.5 million in community block grant funds. Why aren't we truly consolidating all of our administrative functions into one office and save the taxpayer money so we can help people less fortunate within our community? Less fortunate in terms of weatherization, less fortunate if they have a hot water that's bad or a leaking roof, or siding coming off their property, or code enforcement issues. and the list goes on with rental assistance, homeless, trying to keep people from not being homeless, helping our community action groups with food banks, and I could go on and on with the many positions. I just don't understand why the administration doesn't work and why they gave up trying to get the city of O'Fallon to join the consolidated plan, save the cost of those 2.5 full-time employees, the cost salary, benefits, and pension. Now this year for the consolidated plan, we're looking at $1,042,000 for the community development block grant funds, which goes to everybody but the city of O'Fallon, which is approximately 103,000 of the 433 county residents. We have the home improvement program on the list, which I agree with. We have the homeless prevention program, which we have a lot of homeless needs, unfortunately, that are growing. You could just see the people that are living on creek beds and living in wooded areas across our county. And we really need to address the homeless issue, especially in the city of St. Charles. Their homeless population, and it's really getting out of control. There was a number of groups that came to the St. Charles City Council last week to testify about quality of life issues and some crime issues within the downtown, the historic neighborhoods surrounding our county building here. The rental rehab development program will have $60,000 this year. The transportation program, $44,800 for the urban county. For the city of St. Peter's, $30,000. St. Peter's community service lawn maintenance, $6,500. And I'm not exactly sure why we're cutting people's lawns, if that's going to go to help senior citizens or people on a fixed income. But I think we need to maybe look at senior citizens countywide rather than just the St. Peter's city only. The community services is $10,000. Senior services, which I believe is for Meals on Wheels, is $10,000 for the city of St. Peter's. What about the rest of the county? We have an aging and growing senior citizen population. The consortium care and HIMS coordinated entry, I'm not exactly sure what that program is all about, but that has $30,000 to be in it. I think we could spend our money a little bit wiser, a little bit better, in better ways. We want to make sure that they're meeting the impacts and the needs of our county residents. I will keep my comments open as I want to do some more research and more digging. I reached out to Ms. Thompson, Kathleen Thompson, the administrator this afternoon in the mayor's office, trying to get more information about the Community Development Block Grant Program, especially Amendment 4, which I'll be speaking about in a moment. And I'd like to keep my comments open until the next public hearing 2 weeks from now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And do you want me to remain for the next one, or?
Do we have any other speakers?
We do not.
Okay, so that will close our public hearing on that one, but we will open our public hearing on the citizens' input for the Community Development Block Grant CV program. With that, welcome back, Mr. Dinoff.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members of the council. My name is Arnie C., A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate. And the memo from Ms. Thompson was not very clear in the packet. That's why I reached out to staff of the city of St. Charles, which run the consolidated program for our countywide community development block grant program. But if I understand what Amendment 4 is it is aid and relief under the Economic Security Act. It's $5 billion that came to the state of Missouri under the Community Development Block Grant Fund, of which our county received, I believe, $68 million, which was divided, I believe, for the county, and then some of that money, maybe it was in addition to that $68 million, was given to municipalities according to population. Now, if I understand what some of these amendments are, one of the amendments, it deals with $1,706,489, which $446,000 comes from the 2020 fiscal year. $1,060,488 comes from the 2001 federal fiscal year. So this program, or dividing this money, I guess it's leftover money from COVID Relief Act is the best that I can find out. I'm going to try to find out more in the next 2 weeks. But of that $1.7 million, public services 60% funding will be $1,024,543 will go, is leftover money from the Small Business Assistance Fund. 6% of the funding was left over in the amount of $106,067 for administration, which is really shocking. 3% was left over in funding for $42,877. And I guess what is proposed, or what's proposed to be used with this money, is the CV weatherization program, $208,000. Approximately $8,500 they claim for every dollar invested will yield back in savings of $1.72 of electrical or gas savings. The unspent funding from the Small Business Assistance, Rent Assistance, and Mental Health Assistance Program with the administration funding will make up that $208,000. But I guess my question is, and as Ms. Thompson is here present, I'd like to hear from her as the staff representative and the director of that program, is what is being done or proposed with the $1,506,000 of leftover money from the other funds. I'd like to also keep up my remarks for 2 weeks from now at that public hearing so I can get the answers and find the research to my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No other speakers.
Mr. Dinoff, I would, if you want to know more about the coordinated entry program, I would send you to Todd Barnes at Community Council. He can tell you all about what the program is all about.
They were at the library district headquarters, and now they're on Highway K?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
They'll be able to answer all your questions.
They also do
about
the
that.
homeless count, is that correct?
They do a lot.
Okay,
He's a great source of information for you.
great, thank you.
There you go. With that, that will move us to public comments. With public comments, as opposed to what we just did, you have a 3-minute clock that is in front of Mr. Swanson. That will count down. Once we get to the end of 3 minutes, I will thank you for speaking, and we will move along to the next speaker. We typically do 3 for, 3 against on every issue. So our first speaker, and the issue is?
Rose Zuck regarding bill number 5385.
Hi again. My name is Rose Zuck, but I don't know how to turn it on.
It's coming. There you go.
Oh. I did talk about this last meeting, and I know they're zoning it from agricultural to R3A medium density, when it really should be low density. Not that I consider 1 to 4 homes low density. Another thing I brought up was the detention pond. Paper. That they considered this as part of the common ground. And I asked, who does that? And I was told by the planning people, everybody does it. I don't agree with that, but that's how it is. And from the articles that I've read, these homes are either for empty nesters or young people looking for starter homes at still astronomical prices for them. And for less yard maintenance. And I found that really strange and funny that nobody wants to work on their yards anymore. I also had questions about the actual mapping. When I look at St. Charles GIS mapping where it shows 15 acres, but yet planning and everything else shows 18 acres. And they tell me that's because it's approximate. Why isn't it accurate for that property? And when we have questions, we're saying it's 15, but you're saying it's 18. So where's the extra 3 acres coming from? And again about the, I got this off your guys' website E360, that the medium density, and this really should be R1E. Not that I agree with 1 to 4 homes per acre, but not 4 to 6 and more acres. I mean, homes per acre. That's all I have.
Thank you.
William Carrier, regarding bill number 5385.
Good evening, Council. Bill Carrier, 4310 Dinah Lane, Wentzville, Missouri, speaking on behalf of Citizens for Smart Growth in St. Charles County. And just want to say real quick, I am honored to follow Rose Zook up here. So our organization opposes the Oakshire development as its number of homes will add to the strain on an already overburdened infrastructure and its non-compliance with the 2030 master plan's recommended R1A land use. Rose just talked about that. Here it is in multiple living color. The area of interest to the left-hand side of the chart between Highway N and Dyer Road is where the subject property is. The little inset shows that clearly as R1A limited to a maximum of 4 homes per acre, and of course the development is at 4.6. Even the developer realizes this is non-compliant. That's why they're proposing R3A. Next quick topic. The threat of O'Fallon annexation has raised its ugly head. And so to address that, just take you through this chart. The subject property is shown in blue in this chart. The green areas are O'Fallon. Currently, there is no contiguity between O'Fallon city limits and the subject property, and thus an annexation, even a voluntary annexation, couldn't occur. It has been conjectured that O'Fallon could extend Dyer Road and using a roadway right-of-way gain some kind of continuity with the subject property. Been researching Missouri annexation law for a while now. I find that highly unlikely. Typically, the statutes point out that roadways can't be used, roadways or railway right-of-ways can't be used to block annexation. One would think that the same couldn't be used to gain an annexation or continuity. And frankly, they don't need it. They don't need it at all. Look at the top of the chart, look at the bottom of the chart. That's post-family farms at the top and that's harvest at the bottom. There is contiguity to expand O'Fallon into the rest of southwestern St. Charles County. It exists today. They can just roll on over to the west. If this government was serious about restricting O'Fallon's annexation, you would challenge O'Fallon's illegal annexation of the 2 properties shown in green in court. They failed to meet the requirements of Missouri State Statutes 71014, 71012, 71015. Please vote no. Thank you very much.
Arnie Dienoff, regarding consent agenda and the legislative special session.
Thank you very much. Once again, members of council, my name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. First of all, I'd like to say either later on this evening, tomorrow, or the next day, Governor Kehoe will be calling the General Assembly into special session. That special session will occur first with the State Senate, then it'll roll over to the House of Representatives between June 2nd and June 13th. The House will probably take up their actions on June 9th through the 13th. It deals with $2.1 billion of funding, unfortunately, for the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium replacement or renovations and the replacement of the Royals Stadium, which is interesting because the Royals owner just turned down the Kansas deal because he can't afford the payments on the 30% when the state of Missouri was offering to pay 70%. And he also signed a extended lease with Kauffman Stadium over there. So just heads up if any additional things, probably House Bill 19 capital improvements for $500 million will also come up on the table. Some of the things on the agenda that I'd like to talk about: do we really need a new generator at the juvenile center for $98,000? I thought we just replaced that about 7 or 8 years ago. How many times do we use the generator with that facility? 3-year Microsoft agreement, $2.5 million. Don't we get a reduced rate as a political subdivision? Family Arena broadcast camera for $100,000. Is it really needed? Family Arena lighting, we just replaced all the lighting over at that facility, and now Bob Schnarr wants another $56,000 when it just was replaced. Body camera and in-car cameras for $22,000. Are we using drug forfeiture assets that we get from drug dealers to pay for these enhancements? Bill number 5386 up on, I'm sorry, that's not the one. The one dealing with the campground, that would be bill number 5384. It's clear and concise from the pictures and the testimony from the residents of that area that you need to deny that conditional use permit and expanding that campground. When it comes to the issuance of $16 million in bonds, the bonds will go to the market for actual bond sale. It'll come back before the council on June 30th. Why are we not waiting for the interest rates to come down? Why are we going to pay 5-6% interest rates on $16 million in bonding for our communication radios that I believe we just replaced 7-8 years ago? On the consent agenda is the copier paper, printing paper, and envelopes. Why are we not consolidating printing and mailing center to offer to municipalities in a joint intergovernmental agreement to save costs in mailing of newsletters, parks and recreation brochures, water bills, sewer bills, and refuge bills? This $123,000 really needs to be discussed with an explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dino.
That was the final speaker.
Final speaker. That brings us to the oral report from the county executive.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have two people are going to make reports. Amanda, you want to go first? Sure. And she'll be talking about the Highway N project that I briefly described at the last meeting, and then Dan Keene will be giving you the report on the jail.
Excellent.
Excuse me, Department of Corrections.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. All right, so I'm going to try to go pretty fast to not keep us here too long.
That's
but
okay.
if you
Take
have
your
questions, let us know.
Ethan wants to write a whole nother story about this. So
okay.
take your time.
All right. So yes, route and expansion, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background about something MoDOT's been working on, this blueprint for arterials that's going along with what we're doing. So, okay, let's see here. Usually this just goes. There we go.
There we go.
So this is from the information on this blueprint for arterials. So the current guidance that MoDOT uses for arterials is derived from highway design, rural highway design, sorry. So that means that we have always been looking at efficient movement of cars, and we have always built those with a lot of excess space for air. You know, big shoulders. If somebody runs off the road, they're gonna run into a ditch or, you know, a big shoulder. We've found recently in studies that different transportation people have done that if you narrow the roadway, people will tend to slow down, and then the crashes are less severe. So when people are going 55, 60 miles per hour on a straight road that is Route N, people I'm sure go 70 miles per hour on that road today. If they get in a crash, it's probably going to be pretty bad. They're going to run off the road, they're going to hit something. It's going to be pretty bad. But if we can keep them slower and contain them to this smaller space, they may still have crashes, but they're not going to be as severe, and you're very unlikely to have somebody die. So the whole new, it's kind of a new philosophy for traffic engineers, transportation engineers, to really look at how do we not just reduce all crashes, but reduce fatalities. We don't want people to die, and we don't want people to be severely injured so that they can't live their lives to their fullest. So just a little background on that. Sorry, I got really passionate. So the intent of this is to really consider all modes, all users, make sure that the context of the roadway fits what's around it. and involve all of the people that need to be involved up front. So in that case, this is people that are already out there, commercial owners, commercial business owners, the people that live out there, fire and police, the cities, obviously the schools, and also the developers who are developing along the route, as we've heard. It's not to put a bike lane on every road or make every road look the same. So this is going to be used in both the city of St. Louis and out here, and our roads are not going to look anything like their roads look.
Yay.
Sorry. Okay, so this is just, I'm going to quickly go over, just pass this by, but just to show that there's all these different options for different things you can do on a roadway, inside the curb, at the intersections, and outside the curb. Like, roadways are not just cut and dry anymore. There are a lot of things we can do to make them safer and accommodate different users. Okay, now, like I said, injuries. So this is MoDOT's arterial network. The red is the highest volume roadways, and then on the right side is the high injury network. So as you can see, our high injury network is not major, but it is all along our major routes and, our arterial routes. Now I'm going to talk about Route K. So this is just kind of an example of another arterial in St. Charles County. So in 2002, Route K was a 5-lane road with 18,400 cars a day. In 2013, it was the same road with 36,000 cars a day. You can see that the driveways are all in the same spots, and this traffic is higher. So here in 23, there are 41,000 cars. There are more developments here, and this road just gets harder and harder to drive on. It's harder to make those turns from the center. However, we can't take those away now because every driveway has an access, a full access. And if we were to want to take that away, or if MoDOT were to want to take that away, they would have to pay every single owner on that road for that access change. So what we have is a principal arterial with 45 miles per hour speeds and 6 traffic signals within 1 mile of roadway. So when we started looking at Route N, we decided this was not what we wanted. It's congested, it's not safe. Here's our arterial, or our fatality network, high injury network, zoomed in on, and you can see that it is indeed the whole route is a high injury network. There's nothing good about it. So Route N has the segment to the east, and again, it's because of traffic volume. It's a high injury network. So how can we make this better? So this is just Route N today, and I'm gonna just roll through these because you guys know, but it moves from the divided median highway to a 3-lane highway to a 2-lane highway, just to more of a little rural road with businesses along it. Sorry. Usually I can just click through these, but I'm having to click next every time. All right. And then we have at the end of the roadway this nice Route Z and Route N intersection that we did realign and make much more efficient, as it was not. So going back in time, we started studying Route N, and we were looking at this proposed typical section back in 2021. So this is kind of, let's get back to, we've got 12-foot lanes, we've got 10-foot shoulders, we've got, 2 sidewalks on each side, but a lot of space, a big median. 45 mile per hour design speed. Volumes are in the 25 to 35,000 range. Whoops, shoot, sorry. Okay, so this one's really hard to read, but I just want to focus on the timeline. So we did start on this back in 2018, and we have been working for a long time with MoDOT to get this kind of into the process to be funded and constructed. It all takes time, but the project itself has really evolved over time. We've involved a lot of people, and the typical section has now changed to this more concise 11-foot lanes, 6-foot shoulder with curb and gutter. We have a nice raised median still, green spaces, and a nice trail along one side. This is just a rendering of that, so you can see. These were also all from the public meeting, so you can find these on MoDOT's website, which I will link to at the end. And then here's just one of the boards, and I picked this one because it has the J-turn. So I'm gonna say this is not a final design. This is in no way, shape, or form. This is what's going to be built out there. They are refining this as we speak. So don't get hung up on anything. But we do have these J-turns so that we don't have to have a left turn access in the roadway at every driveway. We have it at a lot of the more major subdivisions. To get in, they will have to do a right out. But then we have roundabouts and these J-turns so they can make a quick turnaround and get headed the direction they wanted to go. So this is much safer because you don't have that left turn crossing traffic, crossing 2 lanes of the going the other way and then another lane coming the way you're going. Sorry, if that makes sense.
What's a J-term? Where is a J-turn?
Oh, sorry.
there?
Yeah.
And what is
Can
it?
you see it's those little like bulby things. Sorry, I thought my mouse worked, but this works. It's these.
Okay.
So what you do, like if you're coming from here, you come into this left turn lane and you turn into here and then you just merge into traffic and go on.
Okay.
Don't they have those on Lindbergh?
They do.
Okay.
Yes. They are around. And I will say there's not too many of these. There's not a ton of driveways on Route N, and we've really tried to keep it that way, really control the access. So it's not like these are going to be all over the place and nobody's going to be able to get anywhere. It's really not a major issue. So this is kind of just the final slide. This is MoDOT's handout that they had in their project website. And then I also added the Hopewell Dwello project that County Highway is currently working on. So this is all of the stuff that they're doing. And I just want to say, yeah, it's been great to work with MoDOT. They're moving on with this design. We should have preliminary plans in early next year. They will have another public meeting. They had a public meeting in March. It was well attended. We got a lot of positive feedback. And I'm happy to answer any questions now or in the future. And we're just working on funding this so we can get it in MoDOT's program.
Any questions?
How much have we funded for this project?
So we have paid for the initial environmental document, that PEL that I talked about, and we are paying for part of the design, and then we have purchased some right-of-way. So once we compile all that, it's highly likely that we'll try to do a cost share to get more funds from the MoDOT side to put into the overall project. So when we do that, we will also be able to credit all the funds we have already used. So cost shares are 50-50. We do a lot for projects that are, kind of more localized, not more expansion projects that MoDOT doesn't do elsewhere. And we'll get to use all that as credit to get 50% back.
I was surprised I didn't see a bike lane. I thought you mentioned that it was going to be for bike users also.
So no bike lanes on this, just a side path, which will allow for bikes to go.
You're not going to stripe it for a bike.
No. It will be, and it's expected to be a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit. I don't think I said that. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Moving on to corrections.
Good evening, Council. All right. St. Charles County Department of Corrections was developed and built in 1989. During that time, we only could hold about 218 inmates. In 1989, they were mostly low-level offenders, some domestic, DUI. Occasionally, we'd have one or two serious crimes. In addition to back in 1989, the jail also was the office space for our sheriff's department, our juvenile center, and emergency management. Over the years, these departments relocated to other areas, and we expanded the jail in their locations to expand our bed population. This picture here, this is the current condition of our jail. This isn't a snapshot off the internet. This is one of our cells. This is the environment that our staff work in and day out. Okay. Our total bed capacity after those other departments moved out increased to 516. But are we really at 516? There's a few factors we need to look into from an operational standpoint to be efficient. One, optimum operations. We run 65% of what our optimum operation is. That gives us 335 beds or 335 inmates in our facility. That's ideal from an administrative standpoint. We'll go up to functional operation, which is 85% of our bed capacity or 438 inmates. Why are these numbers important to us? This is when it gives us the opportunity to move inmates that need to be moved, kept separate from everyone else. Okay. Several types of statuses we need to focus on. Again, this is another cell that we're dealing with. Regardless if we accept it or not, the jail is not a warehouse. We have a duty to protect every individual that comes in there. Okay? And when we talk about statuses, we're talking about individuals that are maximum, medium, minimum classification, male or female, protective custody, disciplinary, behavioral health, mental health, medical concerns, suicidal, homicidal, the detoxing from drug or alcohol, their co-defendants, their enemies, or civil commits. So yeah, we have 516 beds, but when you start adding these statuses in, we don't have 516 beds because we have to keep individuals separate. Some individuals that are homicidal or suicidal, they'll take one cell up. So you just lost another bed. So our numbers start drifting down pretty rapidly. Here's some numbers for you. 2022, sorry, it's kind of hard to see. Our highest population was 413. Average daily population was 380. We're still in that functional zone. 2024, our highest population jumped up to 422, but average daily pop is 399. Still, we maintain in that functional zone. We'll fast forward to this year. 2025, our highest population so far is 506. Okay? That's concerning from my standpoint because typically our highest time for population is over the summer months. We haven't even gotten to that point yet. So we've hit 506. Our average daily population is 453, way over our functional capacity. The challenge is real in our department. It is real. Give you an idea, that picture to the right, that's our old kitchen that was developed for 218 inmates. Last year, out of that kitchen, we pushed out 461,000 trays. Training. We did over 4,800 training hours completed last year. Why is this important? Well, we have to do the training just like anybody else for law enforcement. However, our population and the types of individuals we're getting now is not like the individual we used to get back 25 years ago when I started. Every individual coming in, to an extent, has some type of mental health or substance abuse concern. Corrections staff, we're not trained back then. Not only do we have to learn the basics of handcuffing and self-defense and use of force, now we have to add in their interpersonal communication skills, mental health first aid, CIT, all these skills to try to diffuse individuals when they come in, because a lot of them are very angry when they come in. Sorry about that. This is for caseworkers, and I'm not sure why it's not popping up for you, but we have 3 caseworkers. Our caseworkers assist the inmates by getting set up with their attorneys, public defenders, filling out the public defender applications, clothes for court, etc. 3 caseworkers have had 46,340 contacts last year with the inmates. It's crazy. Processed in and out of our facility last year, almost 15,000 individuals. Visits to our medical department. Our medical department was renovated back in 2017. Last year we had almost 25,000 visits to our medical department. Again, an area that probably should be expanded at some point, but it's, for the recent renovations we did go through, it's maintaining. Percentage of our population suffering from mental health substance abuse. That's a real number. 86%. That's a real number. From last year, 18% increase on inmates on suicide watch. Fast forwarding to phase 1 being completed. You have the new kitchen, some housing units, a cell that's off to the right. These areas have been completed for phase 1. This is our 5th floor. Again, not the old kitchen we used to have that served 218. So we have the capabilities of doing 1,800 or more trays per day, and that kitchen is built to grow. Okay. We have increased video arraignments and court capabilities. We're not only doing courts across the street from us. We're doing courts across the state, across the nation from individuals that have other charges elsewhere. So they're going through our video courts to complete those. Phase 2 renovations in the process. We have substance abuse unit being worked on right now, male, female mental health unit, behavioral health unit, programming rooms, supervisory caseworker office, and report writing room. This is where we're going. This is direct supervision. This is the beginning of phase 3. This isn't exactly what our unit is going to be looking like, but the concept is there. Back in 1976, the Bureau of Prisons developed what's called direct supervision, and that has been the model for correctional facilities ever since. Jails, it became a model for jails early in the 90s, just after our facility was built. But since then, direct supervision has been the model for correctional facilities, state, federal, and local. What this does is this puts an officer on the unit with the inmates. Sounds scary. However, those officers are on the unit building a rapport with these individuals. They're not seeing the inmate one time in a 30-minute period and I'll see you again. They're on the unit, interacting with the inmates, able to hear what's going on, able to understand if there's some tension that's happening. This is where we're heading to. And finally, what we have going on is inmate monitoring system. This is a program, a system that will monitor inmates that are having any type of medical concerns. It'll alert our medical staff and our security staff to make sure they can render aid in a timely fashion without it becoming a more serious issue. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Anyone have questions? Thank you for all you do and for all your workers.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all we
Anything
have,
else?
Mr. Chairman.
That'll wrap up our oral report from the county executive and bring us to the consent agenda. I would note that the Family Arena new lighting purchase and installation, they have asked for that to be removed from the consent agenda and tabled.
Motion to remove.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any other items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I think we need to pull off the no parking zones near the convention center.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anything else to be removed? Tim?
Yeah, I like to pull off the archaeological mitigation with Lockmuller Group and the copier paper printing with Midland Paper and Western States, if I could.
So we're taking off the copier paper.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
What was the first one that you wanted to pull off?
Archaeological. highway.
Oh, highway. Okay.
Under highway.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so let's take these one at a time. Let's start with highway, since that's the first one there, professional services.
Do you want to approve the consent agenda as amended?
My bad, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Claire. All right, so we're back to Mr. Baker.
So I was reading this. John, looks like we only set one proposal to a consultant. Am I reading that correctly?
So in this case, we had someone else hired for it and actually had started this
Who was that?
archaeological. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll get it for you. Because this is for the Lake St. Louis Boulevard extension.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had someone that, they've started the archaeological study. We've been looking at the cabin and everything that was down in that area. Well, that person has decided to retire, and they had passed on all their information to Lockmuller Group and got them involved. And since they were on the pre-approved list and they were already brought up to speed by the previous person we had hired, there who we recommended to continue.
That doesn't make any sense. We gave, that consultant gave another consultant all their information, and now we don't have any other consultants to choose from?
Well, it was just one of those where we felt that it was cheaper to move forward with someone who was aware of the project than start from scratch again, so.
Because I know
it was an odd situation.
There are several other consultants in St. Charles County that I know can do this work, and that's my concern. If we're just sending it to one, how do we know we're even got the best consultant doing it? Even irrespective of the fact that they've got information that somebody provided them.
Well, I
think
mean,
that's
we
odd.
know they're qualified. I mean, I'm not worried about that. But yeah, it was an odd situation. We are on limited time to complete this because this has been a project that's been dragging out for so long.
Who was, you don't? I'd like to
I
know
don't
who
remember
other
the
consultant
previous
was, and
consultant. I'd have to look that up for you.
I personally, I don't like to be forced into selecting one consultant, whereas we could get many, and I'll name SCI, a local firm. I know they do this type of, and so.
Again,
either
most of this was
table
just
or get some
just
more
the
information, but
yeah
who-
the short time period was.
And how are you guys in your office selecting what consultants you go to for proposals? Who does that?
It's usually a combination of Chris Bostic and I.
Okay.
And so yeah, we'll put out RFPs. We'll get proposals back. We'll grade them based on.
But you didn't do that in this case, though, right?
Not for this particular one, no.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if you have the votes to do it, I would love to see this sent back to us.
Do you agree with what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we, I would agree with Tim, let's postpone this, pause it, and let you guys ask more questions.
Thank you.
I make a motion to table this particular item.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Can
Move
I ask
to.
a question real quick?
Please don't.
Is there a way to fast track this through the bid process and everything else? Can you zero down into it and say,
Well,
let's?
he's trying to fast track it, but.
Yeah.
Well, I get that, but.
Yeah, I mean, not really. You have to give everybody time to put a proposal together and review them accordingly, and
But
there's
we always use it, we don't ever use the criteria, we don't have time to not submit.
No, you're right.
So I
Well,
just wanna be clear.
this one, obviously, whenever you've got outside funding involved with a grant project and things like that. We do have time constraints, and this one's been sitting out there for a while, so.
Then, sounds like we also made a mistake by hiring the first consultant. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, everything would have been fine, but this project has, met some delays both on the O'Fallon side. I think we've had people here in the past come in and talk to us about, residents in that area and their concerns. Well, they've raised that up with O'Fallon. O'Fallon's portion of the project has slowed down, which is, slowed ours down accordingly. And had everything moved forward in a normal time frame, then our previous hire would have worked out just fine.
I don't think we want to get in the precedent of
Mr. Chair.
changing our policies.
Sir,
though.
We've already made a motion.
We've already made a
to
motion,
table.
so this is
Okay.
tabled, we're done.
That's fine.
Thanks. Let's move on to your other issue, copier paper.
Can we just get some clarification? I mean, I read through the summary, and I know Mr. Dienoff had some questions. How do we bid these in individual types of paper, and then we go from there? Or, I mean, or we don't go to one sole source consultant or printer provider? Yes, could you just clarify the bid?
Since this is a communications matter, I was just texting our print shop director, Deb Kennedy, and I said, hey, they're talking about the print shop. Can you tell me some information about this item? And I sent her a picture of it. I said, what is this for and why is it a good deal? And she says, that is the approximate cost of the paper and envelopes for the whole year. Yes, it is a good deal, as these two companies are the lowest bidders with excellent turnaround time on the product. And I said, how many bids did we get? And she says 5 or 6. So that's what I know at this time.
Yeah, I see that. It's just that we're not selecting one. I mean, I guess we select, this guy bid this paper, and is that how, I mean, as long as we followed proper bidding and procedures, I guess I'm good. I just wanted clarification, because it's kind of confusing just how we're proceeding.
And from what I understand, when individual county departments order a printing job, then they are billed and they pay for it out of their budget, so it comes back to even out.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I would note for you that our print shop does an amazing job, and the value that we get for them, if you look into it, I think you'll be very pleased with what we get in-house out of that. All right, so that brings us to highway no parking at the convention center.
Mr. Hammond, you said you had an idea.
Well, I don't know.
John, you might as well stay up here.
Why don't we just put up no parking signs except for permits, and give all the homeowners permits to park, and everybody else gets a ticket if they park there.
So that was a thought I had. I reached out, Highway doesn't do any, we don't issue permits that would come from PD. They have to do the enforcement. So I reached out to PD, just asked, well, first thing I asked was, the event parking only, or no event parking. And asked about how that would, be enforced, whether or not that'd be problematic. They felt, it would be. So we didn't go down that route. I thought about the permits only, similar to, putting out no parking everywhere. The thought was, you're still going to be limiting your residents. So what happens when a resident has a party, has outside family or friends that are coming over, they want to park on the street, they don't have the required stickers, neighbor calls it in, what happens to those vehicles? Does the person having the party get to vouch for those people and they get to stay, but they don't have the permit? So then what happens?
Right.
Same thing with doing no parking, everywhere, one side of the street, to make sure that we limit the on-street parking. You're going to affect the people that live there. We're talking about, I think, 5 or 6 events a year where this causes a problem. I didn't want to cause problems the rest of the year for residents that want to park out on the street, or want to have, again, parties or family members over. So the real issue for us was public safety. And not being able to get emergency vehicles through was the primary concern that I wanted to solve. And that's where we went through, we measured all the streets that are out there. We found out which ones you could park on one side and still get an ambulance or a fire truck through. We found the ones where you can't park on either side. We found the ones where you could still park on both sides and still get through. Not necessarily two-way traffic, but you can get an emergency vehicle through. And that was the recommendation I sent forward to you for those no parking zones. They could always be expanded. You know, that's not an issue. I was just trying to provide the public safety that the petitioners had wanted for emergency vehicles while not overly limiting their ability to have, you know, other people over from outside the area during the rest of the year when there's no events going on. If you wanted to do something where it's event parking or no event parking, again, that's an enforcement issue. I mean, I can print signs for anything, but you know, I don't want to speak for another department with what they can handle and what they can't. So the no parking zones that were proposed should solve the public safety issue.
Mr. Brazel.
I was just going to say, it seems kind of ridiculous that we're putting the burden on these people for no parking when the convention center can't run their facility properly, where they're overbooking and they're causing these problems for these people. It seems to me, I mean, you're putting no parking in front of their house. I understand you're trying to resolve the situation. I understand it, but I wouldn't like that. I guess
Mr.
kids and
President.
grandkids. Hold on a second. I would suggest that, is it an idea to, I mean, this is going to take a little more conversation, obviously, but can't you make an agreement with the mayor over there and say, hey, guys, you can't overfill this thing, and you got to build a parking garage?
I've already talked to the mayor about it, and the point I was going to make is that the convention authority doesn't have any control over this. Councilman York, I don't know if you were on the council when that agreement was signed, where the city went ahead and gave the land, and the convention authority paid for it, and the deal was when it was all over, the city could have the facility for $1. And they exercised that. The city exercised that. So this is totally under the control now of the city. I talked to the mayor a couple days ago. He's very aware of what's going on. He realizes they need more parking. They are looking at various, okay? So we need to try to make these folks out here happy and at the same time meet the needs of the city. Because the last thing I want, God forbid, is that we don't do what the city needs or give them what they need or try to work with them, and we'll be back here a year from now, and some of these folks will be back complaining because the city wants to condemn their property to extend their parking lot. Okay, I don't think any of them want to see that happen. I certainly don't. I know that this council has been opposed to eminent domain, but if the city gets to the point where they have to have more parking, we can't stop them from doing it. So my only suggestion to the folks out here and to you all, let's try to get the city and the homeowners who are our constituents to agree on something that will please both sides. And of course, to do that, everybody's going to have to give up something.
Mr. Baker.
Can't we just make it no convention center parking and just, I mean, you said, I mean, it's just.
Right, but.
I mean,
well,
no parking is not the solution. I mean,
again, that goes back to the enforcement issue, which, highway doesn't do.
No.
If you do no convention center, then, PD, and they may be better to speak on this than I am, but the conversation I had was, they would have to, every car, they'd have to figure out, is that a local person? Is that someone from the convention center? They're gonna have to knock on doors. Like, how are they gonna figure out which cars are a resident parked on the street?
I would have the residents can call and say, hey, I just had a convention center guy, someone just park in front of my front yard. They call the police come and they ticket it. I mean, I wouldn't think they would ticket it just because there's a car there, because it could be, hang on a second.
I can't answer for PD on how that would go.
Well, I'm just saying, it seems like a relatively easier solution than we're making it, though.
Again,
Chief,
that's an enforcement issue.
Can you come up here real quick?
Which, just real quick, one thing to keep in mind, if you, and if you don't approve this tonight, then we would have to take the signs down that are out there, and then those areas do fall back into, being too constricted for emergency vehicles. It can always be changed afterwards, so.
You put signs up before we passed it?
Yeah, so under the ordinance, the
He has
county
the
engineer
authority.
has the
That's what I'm
authority.
asking, Mike, hang on.
Yeah, the county engineer has the authority to put up temporary signage, including no parking. So given the concerns and the upcoming convention, center events, and being concerned about the emergency vehicle access, I went ahead and put out signs temporarily to cover them for safety reasons, knowing that eventually it would come here. If you guys vote it down, I can pull the signs. If we change it, we can add something different. No harm, no foul, but at least they're covered from an emergency standpoint.
So if we table it, you're leave the signs up or what?
I would think tabled, they could stay up until you make a decision. Because they're valid for 120 days, I think, so we've got a little time.
Chief, can you come up real quick? I know, I had a conversation with Captain Hunt, and who does patrol, so he would be in charge of this enforcement, I am supposing. He said he spoke with St. Charles.
So we had a meeting with the Convention Center, St. Charles City Police, and us.
Okay.
And we threw everything out on the table to see how we can work together on this. And the city agreed to work and help discourage people from coming to the neighborhood. We, on all the large conventions or gatherings or activities that are going on there, are putting a detail in there and have for the last couple weekends that there's been large events there. So we've worked with the highway department on the temporary signage and what ordinances are enforceable per that temporary signage in 120 day that allows us. So we've got a plan in place, if it's convention traffic, or parking. So if anything blocking driveways or mailboxes is getting ticketed or towed. If it's blocking a driveway, it's getting towed. So but if it's a large event, we're putting a detail in there full time for that weekend.
Okay. So what do you specifically need a sign to say to be able to do enforcement?
Whatever the signage says, we just need to know the ordinance to back it up that we're enforcing. That's all we need.
Okay.
But, if if we get a report from a resident said that is, or we'll knock on the door like we suggested, does this car belong here? Then we'll ticket it.
Okay.
So whatever you guys agree on the signage, as long as we know what ordinance is backed it up.
If somebody's just on the street, not in front of a parking, or not in front of a driveway and not in front of the mailbox, and somebody's parked there, you can't tell them they can't park there unless there is a no parking sign, correct?
Yeah.
You can't just come up and say you can't park here.
Right, it has to be signage and then, the ordinance to back it up. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for Chief?
Mr. Chairman, the original question about if it's event parking only if it's event parking only that's prohibited, do you feel that you can enforce that?
Yes, with with what we've agreed on, we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd feel comfortable with that, and we'll work with the residents on, make sure it's not a guest of theirs. But if it's someone from the convention center, then we'll ticket it.
Okay.
So,
any other questions?
That would be easier than having everyone have to come to you and
Get a
what do I want to
permit.
say, get a permit, and bring
Yeah.
in all the information on their car and
Yeah.
things like that. And then that would be harder than just
Oh,
saying
that'd
no
be-
event parking.
absolutely. No event parking, we'll work with whatever, but we can work with that. And on the very large events we know they have, we're putting the detail in there.
Okay. Because
Thank you,
that
Chief.
came up a couple weeks ago, and everything I got back said that won't work. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that it could.
Yeah, we can work with it, absolutely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, there's still gonna be certain places that, because of the public safety thing, that there's gonna have to be no parking signs to create the lanes that you were talking about earlier, is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct. I think the residents, when, in their minds, whenever there's not an event, there's not enough of them parking on the street to cause the problems. I guess if PD's willing to do the no event parking, then hopefully that would cover that. Certainly those areas could stay up just as a extra bit of caution, but that's.
I say we start with that, and then if that doesn't work, go to more of the no parking.
So my understanding that we're going to,
Leave it
did you want to say something first of all?
I was going to ask the chief a quick question if I
Okay.
could. Chief, if it's just event parking, how are you going to know who's there for the event and who's actually living in the house?
Well, we won't. We'll have to work with the residents and count on them, and we'll run the plate to find out they're local. You know, the officer could knock on the door. If it's a large event, that's when we see this problem. We're gonna have
Well,
officers.
will you respond to their complaint, or will you?
Sure.
Okay, so you'll be responding to a complaint.
We'll respond to complaint.
You won't just be patrolling?
Both.
Well, if you're just patrolling and you see everybody, I mean, you know that most of the people are probably from the event, but you
Correct.
don't know that everybody is. So do you give everybody a ticket, or do you give?
If we're making contact with them, we'll tell them that they can't park there. Again, on the very large events, we're putting a detail in there, a traffic detail in there for enforcement, to tell them they can't park there.
Okay, so you'll tell them they can't, you won't ticket them?
Well, if we find a car there, they're already in the event, and it's not a local resident, we'll ticket the car. Otherwise, if we see them parking.
Okay, but that's what I say, you're gonna have to knock on all the doors and make
No.
sure it's not somebody's resident?
No, I don't think we have to do that. Yeah.
I thought we
Well, I
mentioned
think-
that the property owners were going to call the police and say there's.
No, I understand, you're right, if you call the police, you're right, I understand that. I'm just talking about patrolling. Or do you-
Proactive patrol is
As
the-
long as you just respond to complaints, then I understand it.
Yeah,
I think
we're
it'll work.
responding to complaints, but also, like I said, on the very large events that we know when this occurs, we're putting the detail in the subdivision, not just patrolling. We're signing officers in there.
So do we need to
help
put
facilitate.
signs out on the service road too? Because is that the next place they're gonna try to park?
It'll move them there,
Yeah,
sure.
I guess, can we do that, or does MoDOT have to do that?
That would be MoDOT.
That would be MoDOT.
And that would really be a safety issue there, wouldn't it?
Yes.
John, I just have one more question for you. So these folks were talking about where we have the temporary signs right now, they were saying that's further up. So it's going to push to the yellow part, to use your sign or your map. It's going to push traffic there that we don't currently have signs up.
I guess potentially. I mean, the petition they submitted had all those roads highlighted. They wanted something done on all of those. We just focused on the roads that were narrow enough that you couldn't have parking and get emergency vehicles through.
Could
So
we,
those-
could we be proactive and do the same no event parking on those areas where they feel that it's going to get pushed to anyway? Otherwise, I feel like we're going to be re-eating this meat again.
No, definitely. I think if we moved forward, again,
That was a really bad saying to say, so sorry about that.
The ordinance that was brought forth was just for the sake of making sure emergency vehicles could get down every road that was highlighted on there. And so those were the only no parking zones that were needed to provide that space.
Okay.
If you wanted to do the no event parking, then yes, I would agree you would want to apply that to all of the yellow areas.
Okay. So is my understanding, does the council want to table this?
Yes. I think we need a table to have a clear direction of what's going on, so Mr. Lyons knows, Chief knows, and we can see what's there, then the public can also see exactly what's happening. We don't want to start installing signs and having to start pulling them up because we got them in the wrong spot.
Exactly. So I'll rephrase that. Can I have a motion?
Motion to table.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that is tabled. Thank you, gentlemen, we appreciate it. So that brings us to Resolution 2506. You all are free to leave if you want. That's all we're going to talk about with that. So sorry to take an hour and 45 minutes to get to your issue.
Resolution number 25-06, a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of special obligation bonds of St. Charles County, Missouri.
Any questions or comments about this resolution? Seeing none, please read the bill, call the roll.
Resolution number 25-06, a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of special obligation bonds of St. Charles County, Missouri. Councilman Brazel? Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilwoman York?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Resolution 2506 passes. That brings us to bills for final passage, starting with Bill number 5384.
Bill number 5384, an ordinance amending ordinance number 13-043, granting conditional use permit number 18148 for a campground to JOK's LLC property owner and applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request that this bill be tabled. The applicant has requested that it be tabled for the campground bill.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bill is tabled. That moves us to Bill 5385.
Bill number 5385, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to R3A Medium Density Residential District per application RZ 25-02.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Mr. Baker?
Yes, Bob, this is to you. Have you looked into the contention that this property could indeed annex, or could in the future annex with?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Has anyone at the county looked into that? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't think staff would look into that because it hasn't been brought to them to examine.
Okay.
There's not an annexation on the table in front of the
No.
county, so our staff's not going to look into that until that's something that would be brought up. Mr. Swanson?
No, I was just going to speak on Mr. Brazel's behalf. He had to leave. He was not in favor of this just because of the threat of annexation by O'Fallon that Mr. Baker just brought up. So those were the only comments he wanted me to make as he left.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5385, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to R3A Medium Density Residential District per application RZ 25-02.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilwoman York?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
No.
Councilman Brazel? Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Bill number 5385 passes. That brings us to Bill 5386.
Bill number 5386, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to I-1 Light Industrial District per application RZ 25-03.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5386, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to I-1 Light Industrial District per application RZ 25-03.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilwoman York?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Brazel? Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes. Bill number 5386 passes. Bill number 5387 is next.
Bill number 5387, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documentation for a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to fund 100% of the projected total cost of acquiring and demolishing 3 residential structures, sustaining severe and repetitive loss in flood hazard zones of unincorporated St. Charles County, and further authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documents and perform acts that may be required for purchasing and demolishing those structures.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5387, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documentation for a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to fund 100% of the projected total cost of acquiring and demolishing 3 residential structures, sustaining severe and repetitive loss in flood hazard zones of unincorporated St. Charles County, and further authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documents and perform acts that may be required for purchasing and demolishing those structures.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none?
Councilwoman York?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel? Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Bill number 5387 passes. That gets us to 5388.
Bill number 5388, an ordinance amending the St. Charles County, Missouri 2025 budget approved by ordinance 24-106 as amended to convert a building inspector 2 position to a plans examiner 1 position within the St. Charles County Division of Building and Code Enforcement.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none?
Bill number 5388, an ordinance amending the St. Charles County, Missouri 2025 budget approved by ordinance 24-106 as amended to convert a building inspector 2 position to a plans examiner 1 position within the St. Charles County Division of Building and Code Enforcement.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel? Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilwoman York?
Yes.
Bill 5388 passes, and on to 5389.
Bill number 5389, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental field placement agreement with the University of Missouri Columbia Sinclair School of Nursing.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none?
Bill number 5389, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental field placement agreement with the University of Missouri Columbia Sinclair School of Nursing.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Brazel? Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilwoman York?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Bill number 5389 passes. Final bill for final passage, 5390.
Bill number 5390, an ordinance amending the 2025 budget adopted by ordinance 24-106 by providing a supplemental appropriation to the budget of the Division of Humane Services Humane Donations Fund.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none?
Bill number 5390, an ordinance amending the 2025 budget adopted by ordinance 24-106 by providing a supplemental appropriation to the budget of the Division of Humane Services Humane Donations Fund.
Councilman Brazel? Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilwoman York?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Bill number 5390 passes. That gets us to bills for introduction, starting with 5391.
Bill number 5391, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel. An ordinance of the County of St. Charles, Missouri approving the preliminary plat for Westward Manor Plat 2, re-subdivision of Lot 69 at 75 Knoll Court.
Any questions or comments?
Ju-
Yes, sir.
Real quick with staff, is this just them wanting to divide the lot into 2 lots? From the current 1 lot at 3 acres?
Yes, there's now 1 lot, it would become 2 lots. The only reason before you is because they've requested a variance so that the vegetative buffer that runs through the property, rather than being in common ground and managed by a homeowner association, would just be an easement that would be, that St. Charles County, it would be protected, the vegetative buffer by St. Charles County.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a little burdensome to require a homeowner association for 2 lots, that's the bottom line.
Okay. I was just wanting to clarify after reading the packet, was a
Sure.
little confused. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other? Move on to Bill 5392.
Bill number 5392, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Mike Elam. An ordinance relating to housing and community assistance, and 1, approving the 2025 Annual Action Plan for St. Charles County, Missouri, in its capacity as an urban county for fiscal year 2021 through 2025, under the Community Development Block Grant Program of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and authorizing the county executive to execute all documents or certifications required for submittal to HUD with the action plan, and 2, further authorizing the county executive to execute the funding approval agreements that HUD shall require upon approving the 2025 Annual Action Plan.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to 5393.
Bill number 5393, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Mike Elam. An ordinance, 1, authorizing the amendment of the St. Louis Home Consortium Consolidated Plan 2016 through 2020, and amending the 2019 Annual Action Plan for St. Charles County, Missouri in its capacity as an urban county under the Community Development Block Grant Program of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And 2, authorizing the county executive to execute all related documents, certifications, and contracts.
Any questions or comments? That brings us up to 5394, which may sound redundant.
Bill number 5394, requested by Mike Summer, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of special obligation bonds, Series 2025, emergency communications projects of St. Charles County, Missouri, and approving certain documents and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith.
Go ahead.
I have a question here I have in front of me, this points of interest. Bill number 5394, which is the one that was just read, it said needs to be tabled until bond sale and final approval. Do we table it now, or do we wait till next meeting?
You don't need to table it because it's not up for passage.
Okay, that's
And
just,
on a Tuesday, it's not even up for passage at the next meeting.
okay.
It's 1 day short of legally authorized,
Oh.
so it's gonna be,
They'll table
We
it.
got plenty of time. Okay.
they don't need to table it, they can't pass it.
It's,
Yeah.
They'll want clarity afterward.
Just because we're on a Tuesday now, we don't have the full amount of time.
We don't have the full
so
2
we-
weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
the next meeting will be the first meeting in June. I think this won't need to be, this will be passed, or it has to wait to be passed until June 30th, when the bonds come back. So the next meeting, it will be up for final passage. So I think she's asking whether to table it now or table it then.
No, because it can't be passed. The next meeting's 1 day short of the legally authorized time period to pass the bill.
Okay.
So if no bill introduced tonight can be passed again. They'll all have to wait till the 3rd.
So we will have no bills for final passage at the next meeting, and we don't even have to read them since they've already been brought for introduction. So those will just go straight to the 30th, correct?
It's very unusual. Normally,
Yes.
because of the way the month, we actually end up with 3 weeks
Okay.
in this time period, but because we're so late in the month, it's only gonna be a day short of the 2 weeks required.
Right.
To work by the chart.
So we'll take all of those up on June the 30th. No action to be happening on the tabled bills, which brings us to announcements and miscellaneous. Anybody have anything? I would just like to say congratulations to Kevin Killeen for doing another great job on the Memorial Day celebration yesterday. 2 very good speakers, and I would say the Gold Star mom who laid the wreath, who didn't plan on speaking but did an impromptu speech, was probably one of the best of the day. It was just, it's heart-wrenching hearing her story, but great program. So, and despite what we thought the weather was going to be, it turned out to be a really good day. So, nice job by everybody and all the volunteers who kicked in on that. Anybody have anything else for the good? I would entertain a motion to dismiss.
Motion.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night.